time to behold Red Dragon, written in '81 by Thomas Harris, one of my favorites, and adapted to film 3 times. The first time it was Manhunter, and it was called that because this is 1986. Kung fu and martial arts movies were fashionable, and Red Dragon would have made it sound like one, and they wanted to avoid that, so Manhunter. In 2002, they did another adaptation called Red Dragon. And then in 2015, and the 3rd season of the Hannibal miniseries, they tackled this book. And all 3 adaptations copy the book closely with regard to some of the characters: Jack Crawford, Will Graham, Hannibal Lecter, and of course the investigation and forensic science in the investigation of the Tooth Fairy killings of whole families. All 3 adaptations give us a different Dr. Chilton. We don't really get much of one in Manhunter. We do get the same creepy psychiatric flunky from Silence of the Lambs in Red Dragon. And in the miniseries, we get the same psychiatric hospital administrator who would jump at a chance to write a book about someone under investigation and wound up paying dearly for it. Now, when it comes to the bottom-feeding tabloid reporter Freddie Lowndes, Manhunter and Red Dragon represent him the same, but in the Hannibal miniseries, he is completely turned around into a she who is a true crime blogger. And one big obvious mistake they made in the miniseries is that Lowndes and Chilton both end up in wheelchair fires, even though it was only Chilton who was trapped by Dollarhide. Sorry for the spoiler. And speaking of Dollarhide, our villain, all 3 movies represent Dollarhide the most differently. Manhunter leaves us a lot to wonder about, what this dude's deal is, why is he doing this, and how did it all start. Red Dragon just gives us a little snippet of, his abusive childhood and his insecurities, for having a cleft lip. Hannibal gives us the most, the miniseries. It gives us, the way he sees himself, the way he sees his girlfriend, and just the whole psychosis behind why he is doing this. Now, what is in the book, to answer that question, and it goes to the ongoing theme in Thomas Harris' writing of his villains, mommy issues. Dollarhide was abandoned at birth by his mother, who was a social climber, because he had a cleft palate. He was adopted out of an orphanage by his grandmother, not so much because she wanted to care about her grandson, but because she kind of wanted to take her daughter down a few pegs. He was abused and unloved, and his mental illnesses took root. And long story short, come on, read it. He learned to become a man and a productive member of society in the military, but it was midlife crisis and fear of aging that made this Red Dragon alter ego manifest itself. The ending is the same in the book, only in the movie Red Dragon, with the fight to the death at the Graham homestead. Manhunter gives us this strange shootout with the cops to the stoner anthem In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, and the miniseries gives us a street fight featuring the Red Dragon versus Graham and a furloughed Hannibal Lecter. Now, the biggest raw deal from all 3 is how much they cut out of, Dollarhide's sermon to Lowndes when he kidnapped him to make him atone for the lies in the paper in the movies and the book in the miniseries. Now, if they don't want to deliver, no worries, I will be more than happy to. Let me test drive my acting chops right now. Behold, you said that I, who see more than you, am insane. I, who push the world so much further than you, am insane. I have dared more than you. I have pressed my unique seal so much deeper into the earth, where it will last longer than your dust. Your life to mine is a slug track on a stone, a thin silver mucus track in and out of the letters on my monument. The words Dollarhide had written in his journal swarmed in him now. I am the dragon, and you call me insane? My movements are followed and recorded as avidly as those of a mighty guest star. Do you know about the guest star in 1054? Of course not. Your readers follow you like a child follows a slug track with his finger. And in the same tired loops of reason, back to your shallow skull and potato face as a slug follows his own slime back home. Before me, you are a slug in the sun. You are privy to a great becoming, and you recognize nothing. You are an ant in the afterbirth. It is in your nature to do one thing correctly. Before me you rightly tremble. The fear is not what you owe me, Mr. Lowndes. You and the other Pissmires, you owe me awe. Dollarhide stood with his head down, his thumb and forefinger against the bridge of his nose. He then left the room. He didn't take the mask off, Lowndes thought. He didn't take off the mask. If he comes back with it off, I'm dead. God, I'm wet all over. He rolled his eyes toward the doorway and waited through the sounds from the back of the house. When Dollarhide returned, he still wore the mask. He carried a lunchbox and 2 thermoses. For your trip back home. He held up a thermos. Ice, we'll need that. Before we go, we'll tape a little while. He clipped a microphone to the Afghan near Lowndes' face. Repeat after me. They taped for half an hour. Finally, that's all, Mr. Lowndes. You did very well. You'll let me go now? I will. There's one way, though, that I can help you better understand and remember. Dollarhide turned away. I want to understand. I want you to know I appreciate you turning me loose. I'm really going to be fair from now on. You know that. Dollarhide could not answer. He had changed his teeth. The tape recorder was running again. He smiled at Lowndes, a brown-stained smile. He placed his hand on Lowndes' heart and, leaning to him intimately as though to kiss him, he bit Lowndes' lips off and spit them on the floor. Later on, they play the recording, and I don't like how they cut it out and made it sound kind of thrown together and not very well thought out. I mean, Dollarhide is a wordsmith. For a shy guy, he's brilliant. So, I'll give you the recording, too. Freddie Lowndes sounded tired and frightened. I have had a great privilege. I have seen with wonder and awe, the strength of the great red dragon. The original recording had been interrupted frequently as it was made. The machine caught the clack of the stop key each time. Graham saw the finger on the key. Dragon finger. I lied about him. All I wrote was lies from Will Graham. He made me write them. I have blasphemed against the dragon. Even so, the dragon is merciful. Now I want to serve him. He has helped me understand his splendor, and I will praise him. Newspapers, when you print this, always capitalize the H in him. He knows you made me lie, Will Graham. Because I was forced to lie, he will be more merciful to me than to you, Will Graham. Reach behind you, Will Graham, and feel for the small knobs on top of your pelvis. Feel your spine between them. That is the precise spot where the dragon will snap your spine. Graham kept his hands on the railing. Damn if I'll feel. Did the dragon not know the nomenclature of the iliac spine, or he just choose not to use it? There's much for you to dread. From my own lips you'll learn a little more to dread. A pause before the awful screaming. Worse, the blubbering, lipless cry, you goddamned astard, you romist. And now, just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to read the letter that Hannibal Lecter was quoted to have said in a phone call in Red Dragon and Manhunter, but it just reads so much better as the letter. Enjoy. Dear Will, a brief note of congratulations for the job you did on Mr. Lowndes. I admired it enormously. What a cunning boy you are. Mr. Lowndes often offended me with his ignorant drivel, but he did enlighten me on one thing, your confinement in the mental hospital. My inept attorney should have brought that out in court, but never mind. You know, Will, you worry too much. You'd be so much more comfortable if you relaxed with yourself. We don't invent our nature's will. They're issued to us along with our lungs and pancreas and everything else. Why fight it? I want to help you, Will. I'd like to start by asking you this. When you were so depressed after you shot Mr. Garrett Jacob Hobbs to death, it wasn't the act that got you down, was it? Really, didn't you feel so bad because killing him felt so good? Think about it, but don't worry about it. Why shouldn't it feel good? It must feel good to God. He does it all the time, and are we not made in His image? You may have noticed in the paper yesterday, God dropped a church roof on 34 of His worshipers in Texas Wednesday night, just as they were groveling through a hymn. Don't you think that felt good? 34, and He let you have Hobbs. He got 160 Filipinos in a plane crash last week. He'll let you have measly Hobbs. He won't begrudge you one measly murder. 2 now. That's all right. Watch the papers. God always stays ahead. Best Hannibal Lecter, M.D. As much as I really enjoy the way these books are written, I don't like how the writers for the miniseries just used just the narration and regurgitated that as dialogue. To me, it just seems a little half-assed. I really was excited about the miniseries. I thought it'd be kind of cool, but when I watched it, I kind of had a hard time paying attention because it just failed to keep my interest because of that. It just, also because they put more effort into a lot of the slayings, before Hannibal Lecter was caught. It just seemed to me like a national TV station's pushing the envelope on how gross they can be. And that's all I gotta say today for Red Dragon. Thank you for watching. I hope you had some fun. See you next time.